want to speak to Boris. Yeah, I'm just wondering if he's, I just need to know if he's heard our 3 demands yet. We need to tell the truth. We need to cut carbon emissions by 2025. Yeah. And we want citizens' assemblies so we can decide what to do about the climate crisis. All right? Yeah, pass that message on. Thank you.
Hello, I am Sarah Zoltash. This is XRTV. Welcome to day 6, Saturday of the October Rebellion. First of all, I want to say a big thank you to all of our viewers out there. We're seeing all of your comments, we're seeing all of your shout outs from all different cities that you're watching this broadcast from. And also to say that yesterday we weren't able to be exactly live with our broadcast. We've got a few technical hitches. We're basically doing what the BBC ought to be doing, but they're not. And we're trying to do it with mobile phones. So please forgive us if we're not always exactly live, but we're trying to get it to you as fresh off the ground as we possibly can. You can see here today, we're right now at the end of the grief march that has taken place today. This is a march that acknowledges the great grief that we are all experiencing in this movement and all around the world at the great losses that we're experiencing because of the climate crisis. The march started at Marble Arch, at least 5,000 people there, and we marched down Oxford Street, past Oxford Circus, which was an incredible beacon of hope in the movement during the April Rebellion. And then we marched on down past Tottenham Court Road, up Tottenham Court Road, and here we are now in Russell Square. We're going to have a look now at how today's march unfolded. We're here on the grief march. There's lots of people who've come down today, lots of people who've got the day off, and they're joining in this march of grief. What are we grieving? We're grieving what is at the heart of every single climate movement all around this world, which is the great sorrow and the great sadness of what we are losing every single day that the government does not act to address the climate crisis.
Also grieving for my son who spoke just now, because he has for a long time been thinking he can't have children. So I'm grieving my grandchildren and my grandchildren's grandchildren.
I'm grieving the future loss of our planet as we know it. I'm grieving our existence. I'm grieving the future for my children. I'm grieving the ignorance of our rulers, the inaction, their inability to realise, to tell the truth.
I'm crying because this is like where we really see it. We really see what we're doing as a species, as humanity. Like what we've enacted upon this planet and what we are enacting upon this planet and what we will continue to do if we don't change.
Let's have a different song.
Of animals becoming extinct, and there is a lot of litter that people just drop on the floor, which goes into the seas, and there's lots of animals, and everything get too hot, and all the icebergs are melting.
I think I'm grieving the hopes that I could have for my grandchildren.
XR doctors now. If you could ask the politicians to just do one thing, what would that be?
I'd like to start taking this crisis seriously. It's affecting every aspect of our society, but in particular health. The way we see healthcare at the moment is only going to change. It's going to be all about increased infectious diseases. It's going to be all about increased catastrophes. We're already seeing that the southern hemisphere is at most affected, and it's not fair. It's not the people who are creating and using the most fossil fuels who are actually the ones being affected at the moment.
Oxford Circus, which was a beacon in the April Rebellion. We all remember the pink boat that was here. You can really feel the energy in the march as we return to this place that we held so strong in April. What would you say to people at home who are watching this?
I'd say come and join us. This is really important. This is all of of our futures, and we're all going to have to get involved together to solve this problem. It's absolutely massive. It's not going away. It's going to get worse. So come and join us. Everyone is here and you'll be welcome.
So really moving stuff there from people who have been marching today in the rain. You can see that for so many people, this sense of grief that they feel is really about a sense of justice, about a sense of what they think is right and what's wrong. We here at XRTV really believe that for you, the viewer, the justice involves telling the truth about what's happening on the ground. And if you want bigger news outlets like the BBC to tell the truth about what's happening on the ground, we really implore you to please write to them. They're receiving all of your complaints, and the more people who write to them and say, please cover XR in its fullness, with its full story that it's telling, the more they'll listen to that and the more they will be moved to tell that truth. So when we think about justice, especially in the climate movement, we can't but help think about people in the global south who are already experiencing the effects of the climate crisis. Earlier on today, I spoke to people from the Global Justice Site, which is a self-organising group within Extinction Rebellion that really is anchoring the strong intention that the climate movement holds the needs and requirements of people in the global south in its heart whenever it tries to make any decisions about how to move forward. Let's see how that conversation went earlier on today. We are here today at Marble Arch preparing for the Grief March that's going to be taking place today. And some of our regular viewers might remember that I was dressed up all in gold as Lady Justice on Wednesday to support the Lawyers for Extinction Rebellion when they were making their declaration about how they would use everything within their legal power to support this movement. I'm joined today by representatives from Global Justice, really speaking about the heart of justice issues in this movement. Hello Ali, hi Cameron, hi Adam. So I'm aware that the ideas around global justice that are present in this rebellion came out of quite a challenging seed that was planted in the April Rebellion. I think that some people feel that XR needs to be an apolitical movement to be able to bring together everyone who is affected by the climate crisis. What do you say to our viewers, people in the movement, and maybe people outside of this movement who think that the climate movement needs to be apolitical?
Well, I would say to them that I think it's a little bit late for that, if there ever was a time for it to be apolitical to begin with. We have to understand that, yes, while the majority of us, the vast majority of us, are in this together, first of all, not everyone around the world will be affected in the same way. And that is because of global politics as we know it today, and historical global politics, but also that there are a handful of people who are knowingly and willingly profiting of climate change and of ecological destruction. And so we have to understand that politics which defends those interests are not on your side, they're not your friends. And that includes, I'm afraid, the police. The police, I mean, on the first day, for example, even before we began any of the protests, things were being seized already on the weekend. We're aware, like we said, that our actions are causing disruptions, for people's commutes, and of course it's annoying, we understand that. But the inaction of the government on climate change is also causing millions of deaths around the world. And when you understand which side the police is protecting there, then you realize that this is entirely political. So if you want to look at it in terms of beyond party politics, in terms of building grassroots movements from the ground, absolutely we 100% believe that, and that's what we're trying to do in terms of creating a network of solidarity, of groups who are on the front lines of climate change, predominantly in the poorer parts of the world, in the global south, who've been fighting this fight for decades. But if you want to call it beyond politics, well, I think that's just not telling the whole story, really.
Yes, and in telling the story is something that's really important to us at XRTV. We've been hearing from our viewers that we are basically the only media channel that's telling the truth on the ground. Everyone else is skewing the story and trying to spin some narrative that serves their interests. How is Global Justice working, the Global Justice organisation within XR, working to represent the different constituent parts that are inside that part of the movement?
For us, I think it's less about us trying to represent, but us trying to build a bridge. So XR is telling people to tell the truth. We need to listen to the truths of the people who've been fighting this fight for a long time.
So we're working with people from the Global Women's Strike, from the Kobari Solidarity Network. We're standing in solidarity with Kurdish Solidarity marches, and we're listening to these struggles. And we're not trying to represent people. What we're trying to do is to build a bridge with XR so that those groups can represent themselves and be listened to and respected and learn from in a way that they haven't been in the past. And that's what we're hoping to achieve.
And I think that's so important, and in that way I really feel a connection to our siblings in the climate movement in the US, who really put the voices of Indigenous people at the forefront of what they're trying to do. So this feels to me like it's really evolving the conversation within XR. In what ways do you feel like what you're doing within Global Justice differs from and is evolving XR as a movement?
Well, I think first thing we bring is an analysis that says that the system is the root cause of climate change, and that's what we have to fight. So I mean, I realised this when I read an article by Asad Rehman in Red Pepper, where he said that basically, if we transition to renewables, the amount of metals and minerals we have to mine would increase, and metal and mineral mining is responsible for about half of global emissions and 80% of natural biodiversity loss. And that's extraordinary. So the system itself has to change. The way we produce and the way we distribute has to change completely. And so I guess what we bring is the idea that we can't fight that unless we really have solidarity with lots of different groups and constituent peoples. And that in terms of tactics, we need different types of tactics, not just a reliance on one. So for example, we set up site off a road and park, and as a result we've served as a kind of regen space where rebels can come and like camp safely and also learn quite a lot, and acts kind of like an education space.
I think in that way that really you're doing such an incredible service to this movement, to insist that inclusion needs to be at the point of strategy and not something that's an afterthought. In what other ways do you think Global Justice and the work that you're doing within XR is really essential to the wider movement?
I think that the global climate crisis is rooted in injustice. It's the injustices that have happened in the logging, with the mining, with the extraction, and right back to colonisation and slavery, and that is going forward. So we need to realise as a movement that this isn't an add-on, that the solution to the climate crisis is global justice. And I think as well as doing that on the ground, we really want to do that to the centre of the movement, to go where the messages are being developed for the whole movement, as well as providing that conversation for people out and about on the streets, places like today.
Those thoughts about justice are so timely today, because today is a day of solidarity for Indigenous peoples all around the world. Indigenous peoples have been at the front line of the climate movement since it began. And as we tune in today to this downpouring of rain, we all feel drenched by our own grief and our own sorrow about what's happening to the planet. So many rebels have been really in this weather all week. They've had their camps moved, they've had their tents confiscated, and yet they are still here and they're still part of this rebellion. We've been really fortunate that Lambeth Council has offered us refuge in Vauxhall Pleasure Gardens. That's a little park just behind Vauxhall train station. Lambeth Council, I think one of the reasons that they're so favourable towards us is because the movement has some friends at Lambeth Palace, which is the residence of the Archbishop of Canterbury, and we know that he is definitely in support of what we're doing here. And to try to feel into how those rebellions, those rebels, they're feeling at Vauxhall Pleasure Gardens, we have a report from XR TV's Luke.
It's a soggy Saturday morning here in the Vauxhall Pleasure Gardens as the rebellion heads into the weekend. And as you can see behind me, it's become a sea of tents where rebels from all the sites across London that have been closed down by police are seeking sanctuary away from the disruption taking place in Trafalgar Square. Now, the police have said they're welcome to stay here, they're welcome to set up camp, and we'll go and chat to some of the people and see how their evenings have gone. Just over the river from the relative chaos of central London, Vauxhall offers a stark contrast to Trafalgar Square. While police presence is noticeable, the general atmosphere is far less tense. One activist said that they were relieved to find a place where no actions are being planned. where they can recuperate and regather. And after a week of protest in which the police have been keen not to allow activists to settle in one place for long, many are glad of a place to call home.
So there's loads, yeah. So, yeah, we'd have to move it.
With all the moving parts of the rebellion, a particularly important job is that of the stewards. And with such a fluid situation, I'm joined by Izzy, who's a steward at the Vauxhall Pleasure Gardens site. I'm just wondering how your job's going.
It's been a little bit difficult because everybody is spread everywhere in a fairly big park. And so it's just running around trying to find out where everybody's friends are and where all the multiple facilities are supposed to be in one place, but I've gone everywhere. But, you know, it's quite nice. It's nice to meet everybody.
And for you as a steward, you've sort of got a very specific job, but how are you finding that job's evolved over the course of the week?
It's definitely just doing whatever is more important at that time because I think everybody just assumes you're just here and point people in different directions, but if people suddenly need help moving something or help in the kitchen, it's just kind of somewhat of a handyman or just every jack of all trades kind of position, just whatever needs to be done.
At the moment, there are no plans for the camp to be moved on. Music to the ears of many of those who've been dragging their tents, beds and equipment from one spot to another.
Well, the rain's really coming down now at the Vauxhall Pleasure Gardens. People behind me are queuing for teas and coffees and breakfast. And I'm joined now by John, who has spent the night here as well. How are you feeling, John?
I'm feeling elated to be at a nice new site. We had 4 of us squeezed into a tiny little tent and it's cosy.
And what's the mood like down here at the Vauxhall Pleasure
It's
Gardens?
pretty relaxed. It's pretty relaxed. Yeah. So hoping we can kind of recuperate here and then do some more interesting actions around the city.
Is it a sort of welcome sanctuary away from the sort of public disruption and all the actions going on?
Yeah, very much so, yeah. Sleeping in Trafalgar wasn't that easy, so yeah, here was really nice.
I'm joined now by Neve, Francis and Matilda, who spent the night here in Vauxhall Pleasure Gardens. And I'm wondering, how's it going, guys? How was your night?
Warm, actually. Nice and cosy in our tent. A little bit cramped. Wet, but we're all right.
And how are your spirits? Does the rain sort of reflect the mood at all? Or
No.
Are you upbeat?
Very upbeat.
And it's never long before the kitchen turns up, with everyone eager to lend a hand.
Yeah, we just turned up this morning. Everybody was waking up, so we just thought we'll come in here and get stuck in and help make some drinks. Yeah.
And what are the sort of logistics of running a kitchen tent when you're having to move tea urns and massive packets of Alpen and stuff like that halfway across London?
Cooperation, I guess, is the main word, you know, and it seems to be working. So nobody has a job they have to do. People volunteer for jobs, and there seem to be enough volunteers, and every job is covered.
I think without even asking, you know, people just come up constantly asking if they need, you know, if we need any help here in the kitchen. So, you know, you don't even have to ask, people just offer to help.
It was so good having a purpose. It's like I felt I had a purpose. It gave me focus, it gave me purpose, energy, excitement all day, every day. But when I got to Vauxhall, I didn't really have that anymore. So this morning I was a bit lost, and then I started washing up, and I ended up cooking sausage and vegan sausage and potato, and found myself in a washer-upper / sous chef role. So without being asked, I just kind of slotted into it because it needed to be done.
Really touching scenes there. We see that people are just willing to pitch in and help each other out in this ever-moving, ever-morphing rebellion. And that goes to the heart of the movement. As much as we're here to demand that the climate crisis is met with appropriate action by our governments, we're also here to relearn what it means to look after each other and look after this planet. Now, you know, this isn't just a story of like one movement or one bunch of people. This is a story of so many individuals, so many characters who are rising up to the occasion. As in this incredibly fluid environment where hour by hour everything is changing, we see people's incredible resilience, their generosity, their kindness to each other, and their determination to carry on being in this rebellion because we know just what it means. In all of that change, the one thing that has not changed is Extinction Rebellion's 3 demands. We demand that our governments tell the truth about what is happening around the world and they act accordingly. We demand that we cut carbon emissions to net zero by 2025. And we demand that we hold citizens' assemblies so that people from all over society have a say in how we move forward. There is also the fourth demand that we've heard of today from the global justice movement, that any way that we move forward really takes these factors about global justice into account. The final thing I'm going to ask you at home today, and I'm going to ask the politicians who I know are watching this, what are you going to do? This is Sarah Zoltash. This is XRTV. This is Sarah Zoltash. This is XRTV.